I didn't know I missed the anime so much, but god damn it, I feel so happy to see the Quints again. I watched it 3 times already, and I've been smiling all the time on every rewatch. I thought I was going to dislike the new art style, but I love it, and I'm not going to pretend that I don't. As for the rest of the anime, it's a bit fast-paced, I'll say that. Events happen one after another without much of a breather between them, and that feels a bit undesirable to say the least. In any case, the first episode was a pretty faithful adaptation. A couple of scenes were left out, but really they weren't important. But we're not here for that, we're here for spicy and exciting rumors, speculations, so let's talk about that. The opening sequences suggest that they're going to adapt a bit further than the scrambled eggs, which is interesting because I always thought that chapter 68, the end of the scrambled eggs, would make a perfect cliffhanger ending for the anime watchers, and it would also end on another wedding flashback like it did in the previous season. It seems odd to pass on that opportunity, but who knows what might actually happen. A couple of rumors circulate the community, such as unconfirmed leaks suggesting the adaptation of the Sisters War arc this season, which is apparently supported by the fact that Takeda appears in one of the scenes from the opening. But guys, if we're being honest, that's an extremely unrealistic expectation. The only way they could adapt the Sisters War arc this season is if they were to skip the entirety of the scrambled eggs, which won't happen because it was already shown in the opening, and it also doesn't make much sense considering the flow of the story. Some quick math shows us the ratio of manga chapters per episode, which was roughly 3 chapters per episode for season 1. Bear in mind that the first 5 chapters were significantly longer than the rest, with the final season ending on chapter 32 and the second season picking up right after that, adapting the next 3 chapters. So realistically, we can expect 3 to maybe 4 chapters per episode this season, and that shouldn't touch the Sisters War arc, unless they skip gears for some reason and rush everything. The longest scenario would be for the adaptation to end right before the Sisters War arc. So that's that. Another interesting rumor is, and hopefully I can get this video done before the next episode, is that the Labor Thanksgiving Day, Yotsuba's date, however you want to call it, will be skipped. Now, this is mainly because the second episode is titled 7 Goodbyes Part 1, obviously referring to the start of the 7 Goodbyes, which would be chapter 39. Let me tell you how I view this. On the one hand, they could still adapt the Labor Thanksgiving in the first half of the episode and move to 7 Goodbyes afterwards, or on the same hand, they could adapt both Labor Thanksgiving and Confession in the living room, although I would prefer to leave Confession in the living room for a later stage, then finish the episode with chapter 39. Now, it may seem like there are a lot of chapters to adapt, but if you go back and read chapters 36 and 37, you'll see that most of the panels can be adapted in a slideshow manner. You know, not exactly a slideshow, but in a quick succession in a way that won't take much screen time. Although it's not ideal, so let's jump on the other hand. I think they might adapt it in full next episode and just call it 7 Goodbyes Part 1. Honestly, there's no reason not to. It's incredibly unlikely to skip the Labor Thanksgiving altogether. If they're not going to adapt it chronologically, then they must adapt it at a later stage. Besides the fact that it's a beautiful chapter, top 3 for me, it's also crucial for Yotsuba's character. It reveals who she really is underneath her facade. It opens up her character. It's really a must. Because I also doubt they'll change the bride or change the ending, considering the ED for the second season, much like the opening, foreshadows future events or, hints at them. Interestingly enough, the ED in a way makes it painfully obvious that Yotsuba is the bride. And that kind of confirms to me that the bride will be the same Quint and that's Yotsuba. I already explained my thoughts on a different ending in my last video on the Quints, check it out if you want, but for now I'll take you guys on a quick ED analysis if you'll have the pleasure of joining me. First thing first, the white dove or pigeon, they're really the same bird, represents Futaro. The bird is surrounded by the Quints, each wanting Futaro for themselves and each one wearing their feelings for Futaro at the current stage in the story. Each car looks at him with desire from afar, Nino does the classic tsundere move and looks away, Miku nervously watches his every move while Itsuki finds comfort in him. Notice how she gently touches one of the legs of the chair. And Yotsuba gets the spotlight. Not only is she in the middle of the group, an unusual positioning for them, but she's directly laying on top of the chair gazing at Futaro with the same expression and body language as she did back in chapter 1 or episode 1. An attitude that doesn't match her current portrayal in the anime and implies there's a hidden desire in her to also have that bird for herself. Each one of them wears a different flower crown, which of course represents their personalities, but more on that later. We'll skip the next few scenes because this isn't the full analysis, and get to where Futaro escapes. The dove is considered a symbol of renewal, meaning that Futaro has caused change around him, but also a symbol of marriage, suggesting that Futaro will marry one of them. The Quints chase Futaro until he flies away, meaning they can no longer keep him for themselves. They did all they could to keep him, but now Futaro changed. He decides who to come back to or, marry. The interesting part is when we get a close-up of each one of the Quints, from the oldest to the youngest. Notice how Ichika appears uneasy, Nino nervous. I mean, she has kind of a blankish face, so your take is as good as mine. Miku is anxious, skip Yotsuba, and Itsuki is somewhat surprised. But there is someone who smiles and has a positive expression. Yotsuba, implying that the bird came back to her, and not the others. Also backed up by the next scene with a nice wedding bouquet suggesting that a choice has been made and the wedding followed. Also the bouquet is placed on the same chair where Futaro's cage was and where Yotsuba was leaning on. There's more to this ED like the Libra scene. On one side we have, at first glance, 4 flowers: red Itsuki, yellow Ichika, blue Miku and pink Nino. But if you look closer, there's a 5th flower in the background, very much like Yotsuba's character, also representing her. How she's always in the background, not standing out. On the other side we have a nice big white rose, of course a symbol of marriage. But notice how white is only present on Yotsuba's crown, creating this scene where even though her flower lays in the background, she'll eventually come forward and outshine the others. Anyway, a very artistic ED to say the least, lots of symbolism scattered throughout it that scream to me that Yotsuba is the chosen one. In any case, we shall wait and see how the anime behaves for the next few episodes. There's also a visual novel in the progress, supposedly focusing on the festival arc, which will eventually lead to alternative routes, but I don't know enough about that and I'm also running short on time right now. I changed jobs and this new one is unfortunately really time consuming. Either way, I'll do my research and hopefully address it in a future video. Thank you guys for watching, I'm glad the Quints are back and hopefully we'll talk more about them in future videos. Sayonara! Okay.